I'm really proud to introduce one of the most important women in Silicon Valley. As a girl, she raised mushrooms at her parents' farm. Now she's partner at Andreessen Horowitz. Margit Wennmachers, nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Grüß Gott.
You told me during the former talk that you wanted to say something about the quota discussion. I think you were a little bit angry about that.
Well, I'm a pretty blunt person, so you can take this for what it's worth. But very personally, if I ever got a job because I'm a woman, I would find it like the ultimate insult. And I think what happens in companies like in Silicon Valley, for sure, if you tell a manager now you have to hire so many African Americans, so many women, they are then being interviewed and they're put on a team and they are instantly viewed as there because of their color or gender. And everybody's going to look past what they're actually good at. And I think that would be a real shame.
So, but I can imagine you got
fans with
okay,
this.
applause.
Like there's 3 people who agree.
Okay. But I can imagine you had some role models yourself when you started your career.
Yes, I've had a number of role models, men and women. I did work for a woman when I first moved to the United States who was awesome, was one of my best friends. I think women, everyone, should look for role models everywhere, not just across gender. You know, I work with amazing people at the firm, they're role models. Because, you know, as we want to break the stereotype, the best way to break the stereotype is to mix it up. And do that in your career and also in the people who you look for modeling.
So let's come back to the Valley where
Yes.
you just came from. What can you tell us about it? What's everyone talking about there? What are new business models? Can you give us an impression?
Well, there's lots of interesting stuff going on, just rattling off a bunch. Something that's very hot right now is 3D printing. So stuff that prints not ink, but metals, plastics, whatnot. And that is really, I think the bigger idea is that it can upend manufacturing. So that's very, very exciting. We just made an investment in a drone company. And before you all go that we're going to start a war, it's not that kind of drone company. But it's an operating system that you can put on small drones that can essentially do all kinds of commercial applications. They're going to send those drones to Africa where there's a small herd of rhinos being protected. And in Africa, there are many rangers, but because of the financial incentives to kill the rhino, even the rangers need to be watched. So they're going to use drones for that. E-commerce is seeing an amazing revival, particularly sort of e-commerce 1.0, Amazon, eBay. It was essentially e-commerce for nerds. If you wanted to buy a particular USB cable, you could type that in, you could find every one of them. But if you want to shop, you need curation, you need design, you need an aesthetic. So there are companies like Fab and Pinterest that do that, that do a really good job.
But are there many female leaders in the Valley?
They're not enough. I will say the good news is HP is run by Meg Whitman, IBM is run by Ginny Rometty, and Yahoo is run by Marissa Mayer, and then Cheryl is the CEO and very powerful at Facebook. So it's getting better. We have a particular additional challenge in tech, in that in technology, things change drastically every 5 to 15 years. We moved from mainframe computing to client server to the PC to web to mobile. And as a result, the technical founder, the founder who has product genius, tends to be best suited to create a company that's very valuable and very long-lasting. Because if you are not technically competent and curious, those new trends will eat you. And that gets me to the root problem that we have, I think, as women, is it starts all the way in high school. We have not managed to get girls in high school, and some boys, interested in coding. So I don't know the statistics in Europe or Germany. In the United States, 10% of all high schools teach anything that has to do with computers. A lot of the founders and some of my partners in the firm started coding when they were 8. So that is a big problem.
So women are a future trend, kind of.
Hopefully. I'm looking at my niece and my daughter right there, so that they're hopefully help us fix the problem. But yeah, we need to fix that. So, and it's not, it sounds like a terrible excuse, but we do have an issue on the supply side. Now, what we do as a firm, and those are small efforts, is we find particularly the technical, the product women in and outside our portfolio, and we get them together and we do show them there is mentoring from other women who have started companies like VMware. There's mentoring from people in our firm or from other friends that we have, and we just show them it's possible. And I will say, I think it's fair to acknowledge that men and women are different, and women sometimes might ask a bit more for permission. So we're trying to kind of find them and drag them over and tell them to go for it.
Come forward.
Yes.
You also
lean in, so to speak.
Sorry?
Lean in.
Yeah, lean in. Yeah. You read the book?
I did read the book.
And you liked it?
I did like the book.
Okay. So you're also responsible for crisis communication. What are you thinking about the big, data scandal, Edward Snowden, who revealed this massive
Oh, it's a complete
data
mess.
Sorry?
It's a complete mess. It's sort of a disaster on many ends. We can talk about Edward Snowden separately. What happens in the United States, if the government, the NSA or the FBI wants a particular data set, they go through a secret court called FISA, and they ask for that data set. The company's lawyers usually argue with them because it's a very unpopular thing to have to hand over the data set. All of this is secret because it's about catching criminals or spies or whatnot. And then they hand over the data set, and then the NSA has it. I will say, I don't know, there are very many computer literate people. You're probably all aware that pretty much anyone, a hacker, can get most data if you use the cloud anyways. So the irony is that this system is usually used where the government wants to engage in a legal process to then get those people into court and into prison or whatever the case may be. So that is already out there. The case hurt and helped our companies. It hurt because the government wouldn't acknowledge anything in the beginning, and users feel uncomfortable and go like, where exactly is my data? How easy is it to use, to get? Ed Snowden was wrong. I mean, he maintained that's still true, but there is no pipe. As you know, there's no server. That's the internet. You can't like plug into it. It just doesn't exist.
You know if there is a pipeline or not?
No, there isn't. There's no such thing because it's a distributed system. It technically, the reporters who worked on it, unfortunately, didn't know enough about technology. It just doesn't work that way. Yes, data gets handed over. The plus for the internet companies is that they now could put a lot more pressure on the government to be more transparent. Because if they're in a position to say, like, here's what we're actually required to do, here's roughly how often, here's how much 0.001% it is, whatever the number is, that will help them greatly. But they're not allowed to do that because it's under this FISA secret court system.
How has this affair changed the situation in the Valley?
Well, lots of panic initially because there's a lot of misinformation. And then lots of pressure, some quiet to the government, some more public to say, like, you need to let us talk about this. We cannot be in a position where our customers fundamentally do not trust us anymore, and we're under a gag order.
I want to come back to the ecosystem in the Valley.
Great.
What's so special about it? You know, everyone is talking about replication in Germany. Everyone is talking about the Europe Silicon Valley in Berlin. Why is this special valley not to reproduce?
Well, for one, I would be delighted if there were many more Silicon Valleys because there would be much more innovation and opportunities to delight users and create companies. So I'm all good with that. I think what works well in Silicon Valley is a combination. There's a great, although private and elite, university system with Stanford and Berkeley and MIT on the East Coast. So we have lots of technically educated people, too many men, or let me put it this way, not enough women, coming out of those systems. We have an established, like 50-year-old system of venture capital that is used to writing checks and not always making money and sometimes losing. It's called venture. We have that. And we have a culture that is very, very much embracing of taking risk. Failure is okay. Bankruptcy is not the end of your life. It is just, if we have an entrepreneur come in and it's his fourth company, that's not a ding. We're not going to first ask like, well, you're a loser because it's your fourth company. We'll figure out like, well, he's been working on this particular problem, or she, for many years. Great. So we have one female CEO. She created a storage company years back, which she sold to Dell for over $1 billion. She has come up with a very new breakthrough idea in storage. I'm like, of course we'll, say, yes, we'll back you, right? So that combination, I think, works really well, and there are portions of it in other places. The cultural piece may be the hardest, the most nebulous, and the hardest one to crack.
But for you as a venture capitalist, location is still a factor. You're not investing in Germany, in German startups.
We have an investment in Austria. We famously did the Skype deal, which was not a venture investment, but a buyout. And Skype, as you all know, was started in Estonia, of all places. But those are the exceptions. For any company in those places, there are many more opportunities in Silicon Valley. And what happens when you're an entrepreneur and you work in Silicon Valley, or you work in not Silicon Valley, you might be friends with 8 or 20 programmers. You might know someone on the business side. You might get your company to 30 people. But getting a company from 30 people to 3,000 is so much easier in Silicon Valley because there are any number of VPs of sales or business development or PR or marketing or whatnot who have seen this movie, who have the experience. There's literally 1,000 for everyone in Estonia, and that's a real challenge.
So how do you at Andreessen Horowitz find future talent or future startups you like to invest? What is important?
So we look first and foremost the person, and the person. What we look for is sort of two qualities. One is they know a secret, and they might know a secret because they know this particular technology, like storage in the case of Paula Long, better than just about anyone else. Or they might have a secret because they had a very personal experience that led them to start the company, and I can give you an example if you want. The second quality that we look for, which is equally important, is courage. Because starting a company, for anyone who's done it, is super, super hard. It's all on you. You can't make everyone happy at all times. It's just like, it's hard. It's hardcore. So having the courage to muscle through that at multiple stages is very important. Then on the idea side, we'll want to write a check if we think that if the idea works, it has what we call uncapped upside, meaning that company can be like enormous. So Pinterest is a great example for that. Like if it works, people will pin photos of things that they enjoy and be social around. If that works, and clearly it is working, it essentially has uncapped upside. It can be a company that does not need to find an exit from a Google or a Yahoo, but that can be a standalone large company.
Do you remember what was your proudest moment as a female entrepreneur?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm competitive. So anytime we won against all the odds, so there's one time we won a client, and we had a San Francisco office.
What client?
A company's called EMC, which is the behemoth in computer storage, which you might not find sexy. I find it very interesting. But that company was in Boston, and they had bought one of our clients, VMware, which was founded by Diane Green, who's awesome. And we wanted that big piece of business. And they said, like, well, you're not in Boston, forget it. And we're like, just give us the hour. Fly out there, just give us the damn hour. And they flew us out there, and we got the business, and as a result, opened an office. That felt pretty good.
But how did you make it? What was important?
What was important? Oh, the pitch. I mean, so,
What special quality do you need to get the pitch?
You need to understand the company's business, and you need to understand, well, if you're in marketing or consulting or any advisory role, you need to deeply understand what the company's business goals are and then figure out what activities you're going to do to map them to that you can measure. And I think we had sort of mapped out they needed to do these 5 things, and we showed them we had done these 5 things for different clients with different examples, but clearly it was very transferable.
Are there any kind of, what you want to say to future female leaders as a tip or an advice?
Go for it. That's just like the number one most important thing. Just go for it. And don't try to find a mentor who takes care of your career. No one will do that. You are going to be in charge of your career. My advice would be find many. Find all kinds of people who you think have something that you contribute, that do better than you, or that you don't want to model. It works all ways. But find many examples and then just go for it and never, ever stop.
And my last question.
I have more fans on this one.
If you weren't in your career, what would you been doing?
That's super hard. I have two careers, essentially. I have this career at Andreessen Horowitz, which is a brand new firm, practically, which is awesome because it's both a VC firm and a startup. My other career is raising my daughter, which I enjoy because she kind of kicks my ass every other day. So I don't know. I guess the other thing I would try is fashion because I just love it. Embarrassingly much. I mean, I just love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Margit.
No problem.